Malcolm in the Middle had some of the best and funniest TV episodes ever, but it also had some of the worst. So today I'll go over 8 weakest episodes, going from mildly bad to absolutely awful. I'll put the first 2 episodes on this list into one because they are basically part 1 and 2. But boy are they bad. I'm talking about episode's clip show. In here, Hal hauls the boys to a psychiatrist after suspecting they wrecked the car, which becomes an excuse to rehash a bunch of past gags through flashbacks. Essentially, it's 20 minutes of previous cold opens stitched together under a paper-thin therapy premise. Andy Richter guest stars as the therapist, but even he can't save the episode from feeling like a glorified recap. Fans universally slam this one as the show's laziest effort. In fact, it's the lowest rated episode of the entire series on IMDb. And the part 2? This time Hal and Lois are up late writing their will, reminiscing about all the trouble the boys caused over the years. Just another montage of clips from earlier episodes. As a longtime fan, I have to agree these episodes are bad. It offers almost zero new story, and it's just recycled jokes we've already seen. Sure, some of those classic bits are still funny, but with no original plot or character development, it's hard not to roll your eyes. But for the next episode, they had the right idea, but the execution wasn't on point. On paper, Hal coaches could have been great. Hal volunteering to coach Dewey's soccer team sounds like prime comedy. In execution, though, this episode is all over the place. The A-plot has Hal transforming Dewey's timid team into aggressive little monsters. Meanwhile, Malcolm and Reese get a clunky B-plot involving a neighbor's computer where they discover the neighbor's dirty secret and Reese blackmails him into doing chores. And if that's not enough, we also cut to Alaska, where Piyama literally kidnaps Lavernia's parakeet to force better treatment for Francis at the logging camp. Yes, 3 disconnected storylines jammed into one episode. As a fan, I felt Hal coaches suffered from a severe case of tonal whiplash. Hal turning sweet little kids into soccer hooligans is pretty funny, but that plot gets crammed into only part of the episode. The rest is a weird mix with Malcolm getting addicted to a life simulation computer game, Reese extorting a neighbor, and Piyama going full vigilante on Francis's boss. It's too much. The episode never finds a rhythm because it's jumping between so many threads. Fans often cite Hal coaches as a weaker outing. The common gripe is that, aside from a few laughs, the episode feels like filler with random subplots that never quite hit. In the end, Hal's over-competitive coaching gets benched in memory by far better episodes of the series. Here's an episode that sidelined the kids in favor of a wacky adult love triangle that many fans were not into. Polly in the Middle focuses on Jamie's babysitter, Polly, who is desperately looking for a boyfriend. Hal sets Polly up on a date with his buddy Abe, only for Lois to also set Polly up with coworker Craig on the same night. The result, Polly ends up dating both Abe and Craig simultaneously, with neither man aware of the other at first. And then the awkwardness. And by awkward, I mean Craig and Abe literally slap fighting over Polly once the truth comes out. Meanwhile, Malcolm and Dewey have a silly side plot about a lucky shirt that Malcolm insists isn't real. For a lot of viewers, Polly in the Middle just falls flat. It's not that the actors did a bad job. In fact, Polly is amusing, and seeing lovable doofus Craig square off against mild-mannered Abe has its moments. The problem is, this episode feels like filler. We're 4.5 seasons in, and suddenly there's an entire episode about a tertiary character's dating life. It's a jarring detour from the family's usual antics. One fan summed it up by saying episodes like Polly in the Middle are just bad. I tend to agree. The humor is mild, and we're not particularly invested in Polly finding love, since she's mostly a background character. This episode is a rare case of Malcolm focusing on the wrong middle. This episode had potential. Francis finally comes home, and Hal tries to fulfill a long-ago promise to take his eldest son on a motorcycle road trip for his 21st birthday. The catch? Lois hates motorcycles and has outright forbidden it. So the stage is set for a classic Hal versus Lois showdown, with Francis eagerly in the middle. Meanwhile, Malcolm, Reese, and Dewey spend the whole episode hiding inside because a bully named Randy is waiting outside to beat them up. On paper, no motorcycles could have been a fun family face-off, but it's widely considered forgettable. A Reddit fan confessed, "No motorcycles is totally forgettable to me, and I'd never go back to watch that one specifically. The biggest issue is that not much actually happens. Hal's secret scheme to honor his blood oath promise turns into a one-note joke where Hal is sneaking around terrified of Lois's wrath. Lois, of course, goes nuclear when she finds out. There are some chuckles in Hal's over-the-top attempts to please both Lois and Francis, but it never builds to anything memorable. The boys' B-plot hiding from the bully has a couple of classic Malcolm gags. Still, that storyline just ends with the bully eventually leaving, so it's mostly filler comedic beats without a real payoff. By late season 6, the writers were swinging for absurd scenarios, and Stilts is definitely absurd. In this episode, Malcolm takes a humiliating job at Lucky Aid, where he must dress as Uncle Sam and walk on stilts in the parking lot to advertise store specials. Meanwhile, Hal accidentally leaves a phone hotline on all night and racks up an $800 bill, which he desperately tries to hide from Lois. Reese, not to be outdone in the bad decision department, joins an experimental drug testing program for quick cash, gulping down all kinds of pills and experiencing hilarious side effects. It's pure chaos. I remember watching Stilts and being half amused, half cringing. The visual of Malcolm on stilts, mortified as high school girls snap pictures of him in costume, is undeniably funny in a cringe comedy way. But the episode around it is a mess of over-the-top subplots. Personally, I enjoy dark, absurd humor, so I found bits of Stilts entertaining. But many fans feel this episode tried to do too much and lost the grounded family charm that earlier seasons balanced so well. Malcolm working a degrading job is a relatable teen plotline, but toss in Hal acting like a Looney Tunes character and Reese literally on drugs, and it's a tonal free-for-all. In casual fan rankings, Stilts often lands near the bottom. As the series neared its end, we got Cattle Court, an episode that's often slammed as a low point of season 7. The premise is that Reese falls for an ultra-vegetarian girl named Carrie, so he pretends to be a vegetarian too. Working at the meatpacking plant, Reese can't resist his love of beef and gets caught by Carrie chowing down on a pork chop. To win her back, he decides to liberate all the cattle from the slaughterhouse and let them roam free. Meanwhile, grounded Malcolm schemes to sneak out to a rock concert and tricks Craig into covering for him by making Craig think Lois is exploiting him. It's a lot, and Cattle Court doesn't quite land the comedy. The Reese plot crosses into absurdity even by his dumb standards, cause releasing a bunch of cows onto city streets is just too cartoonish. Many fans rank this as one of the show's worst, and it's among the lowest rated on IMDb. I recall watching it and only really enjoying Hal's subplot, where he manically tries to beat Dewey at a harsh reality board game. The whole Reese thing sort of resets, leaving us thinking, well, that happened. It's the kind of episode where you enjoy a few moments, but overall shake your head. However, the next episode is probably the worst one. And here we are at Morp. Even the episode's title hints at the upside-down mess cause it's prom spelled backward. This is the episode that the fandom loves to hate. So much so that a running joke on Reddit goes, "What's the worst episode and why is it Morp?" In this episode, Malcolm is fed up with the shallow show of senior prom and teams up with a group of unpopular kids to throw an anti-prom in his garage. Meanwhile, Reese strikes a deal to take a nerdy girl named Janine to the actual prom in exchange for cash, but only after she gives him a full etiquette makeover and finishing school training so he can pass as prom worthy. Dewey gets a side plot about discovering that Hal and Lois have 0 baby pictures of him, which leads to a revenge scavenger hunt and a little party for neglected Dewey where he forces his parents to experience what he did as the forgotten child. So why do fans pile on Morp? Simply put, it doesn't feel like a Malcolm episode. It feels like a bad teen movie. Malcolm's Morp crusade comes off as whiny and out of character. By this point, we know Malcolm can be a self-righteous grump, but here he's also surrounded by one-off characters we've never seen before and will never see again. We spent seasons with Malcolm's Krellboyne pals, but by high school, he had no consistent friend group, so this Morp clique comes out of nowhere. Viewers have 0 investment in the Morp kids. When some cooler students invite them to the real prom, they ditch him, leaving Malcolm alone in his anti-prom flop, which is a moment that's more depressing than funny. The whole thing is just cringe. One fan called Morp awful and cringeworthy, wishing the writers had instead included Malcolm's old buddies like Stevie or even Cynthia in this plot. Reese's storyline doesn't fit better, though it's mildly amusing to see Reese become a well-mannered gentleman for a night. It's undercut by the guest character Janine being yet another person we don't care about. So that's it, folks. Tell me below, which episode do you think it's worst? This list was my personal one, and I gathered some opinions of fans on Reddit. So, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more videos. I promise my next video will be nothing like Morp. See ya, guys.